why don't you share, for the people who don't know you, share who you are, when you gave birth, what type of birth you had, and was that your original plan?
Okay, so first of all, I have to apologize if I start crying.
No, gosh,
This is a
no.
very emotional time. I know. It's a supportive group, so if I start crying, it's fine. Okay, so my name is Aubrey Davis, and I'm in Spokane, Washington. I found your program on Instagram, and so this is my second birth. My first experience with childbirth was incredibly traumatic, and I feel like I lost 2 years of my life because I was not at all prepared, and I was given very bad information by my prior OB. And the information she gave me was, think of this as a test you can't fail. Like, you can study for childbirth if you want to, but my job is to deliver your baby. And so this being my, that being my first pregnancy, my first baby, I obviously trusted my doctor, this is the expert, right? And it was the worst information, like the worst advice I could have been given, because I didn't study. I didn't have a plan. I was just terrified of the idea of dying in childbirth. So you talk about fear clearing in your course. That was at the top of my list for me, is like me dying, my baby dying, and so that was all at the forefront of my mind for my first pregnancy. So it was a horrible traumatic experience, and so lost 2 years of my life, and found you on Instagram, and it was worth every penny your course. Like oh my God, it completely transformed the experience for me, because it was all the information I didn't have before. And what was amazing for me is that I was able to then look back on my traumatic experience, and so much of it made sense. Oh, I'm sorry, he's awake. I gotta go grab him really quick. Is that okay?
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
No, you're fine.
Sorry, buddy.
This is life. This is motherhood.
I know, right? This is motherhood, and it's beautiful. And
it is
very
multitasking.
Tiring, but yeah, exactly. Multitasking. Okay, what kind of birth I had? It was an all-natural vaginal delivery. And I was planning on that. I after taking your course, I didn't honestly believe that I could do it. And to be perfectly honest, my husband, after my first experience, didn't believe I could do it either. And it was fascinating, because after all the 2 years of therapy and marriage counseling and all of these other, sorry, he's really a loud eater.
It's okay. It's okay.
After all of that, I realized that there were women that were sharing stories with me that were traumatic and were terrifying. And in those instances, it was almost always at a hospital. And I'm not trying to like bash hospitals or bash the medical system. Like, I believe in modern medicine. I think that if I needed heart surgery, absolutely, I would go in for a surgery like that. I would trust my surgeon. I think that when it comes to something that my body is doing naturally and knows how to do, this medical system has failed us, like as women. Like, it was unbelievable to me how different it was. Just, I still gave birth in a hospital for my second birth, but I had a midwife, and I made it clear to the midwives that I had trauma from my first pregnancy, and they were so sympathetic to it because they've heard it before. I am not the first person to have a horrible first experience, and so they were incredibly sympathetic. And the first midwife that I talked to, Lisa, I sobbed through the entire thing because the nurse before leaving the room handed me a clipboard about postpartum depression. And I completely broke down, you know, going through the clipboard. And so the midwife walked in and I'm sobbing, I can't stop. And she realized after talking to me that my prior OB hadn't talked to me about any of the trauma that occurred. Just completely, we're not talking about it. And so my next visit with the midwife, she pulled out the medical records and she went through exactly what happened with me. And suddenly, like, everything made sense. Like the fear, tension, pain cycle that you talk about, that's exactly what happened to me the first time around. And going into this pregnancy, knowing that all I had to do was relax and stay calm, that was the most empowering thing anyone could have ever told me. It's like, all I really have to do is just be calm. Like, no one's ever told me that before. Like, no one's ever described childbirth to me as just be calm, be calm. Find a way to be peaceful, find a way to calm your body. And what was so wonderful about this birth experience is that when I went in, I knew what was happening with my body that day. And I'm 45 minutes away from the hospital. I knew I wanted the safety of a hospital birth. I wanted that safety net, but I wanted a different experience. I wanted to feel calm, and I wanted to feel like the people around me gave a shit about how I was feeling.
Absolutely.
You know? And I didn't feel that last time. I didn't feel that at all. When I got there, you know, they had to triage me and see, like, are you really in labor? And then, you know, they got the blood work back and it's like, okay, I guess she really is in labor. Let's get her into a room. And I had my yoga mat. They had a ball for me. I saw that there was a tub. I had no intentions of getting in the tub. Like, I had no intentions of getting in the tub at all. But then a woman came in and talked to me about epidurals. And I had an epidural with my first birth experience. And when I read the medical report with the midwife, you know, now we are 3 years later, I finally found out that they misplaced it when they inserted which is why I was in so much pain the first time around. It's like, that's why I was in so much pain. It was, I asked for the epidural too late and no one told me. And it literally says in the notes, like, patient was in considerable pain, you know, suspect epidural was misplaced. It's like, that would have been good to know
in
when
the
it
moment.
happened.
Right.
But hey, buddy. And so when the woman came in and talked to me about epidurals this time around, I was like, you know, I have that as a safety net. If I really can't handle it, but I really feel like I can, like, I've prepared for this now. I know what to expect, you know, and I had a split second of like, if I ask for it now though, like, it's good, like, they can put it in properly, they can do this, like, I'll be set, I'll be calm. And then I remembered that, like, but that slowed my birth down. It slowed things down. It didn't give me a chance to move around like I wanted. I was begging last time, can I please just get up? Can I please just squat? And they said, no, because you're paralyzed from the waist down. Like, we can't let you move. It's like, all I want to do right now is move my body. Like, you're telling me to be still and it hurts when I'm still. So this time around, I was like, I just got to keep moving in this room. I just got to keep moving. And so I was on the yoga mat. I was, you know, when the contractions really started picking up this time around, I moved to the bed, I moved to the ball. And it was funny because I felt the energy in the room shift with the midwife and the nurses there when they realized, like, oh, she's going to do this naturally. Okay. And suddenly, like, the energy in the room just shifted, and it was so beautiful because, like, one nurse, she's been doing this for, her name's Erica, and she'd been doing this for 30 years. And she saw that I was getting really tired. The contractions were like, I was doing great, but I felt myself getting really tired. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to run you a bath. Is that okay? Can I run you a bath? And I didn't have any plan in my birth plan of getting in a bath. I was just going to listen to my music because that's how I zone out. And so finally I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to have that bath. Yeah. And she's like, I'm on it. And so she went and she ran me a bath. I got in the bath. And suddenly everything, I just had this moment of clarity. It was so beautiful because I looked up and finally my eyes focused. I made eye contact with my husband, who was my support partner. And he like made eye contact with me and he's like, Boss, you're doing great. Our pet name for each other is Boss. We call each other Boss. So if I say Boss, that's my pet name for my husband. It's great. Yeah. Thank you. And he was like, Boss, you're doing so great. Like, this is amazing. And then what was really cool, Chanel, oh my God, this was, again, your program. I felt in the tub, I'm sitting there and my husband is like pouring the water on me. And I just had this beautiful moment of like, oh, this is so restful. This is so nice. And suddenly I felt this urge to push that I did feel in my prior pregnancy, but it scared me.
Yeah.
That scared me. I had no idea what was happening. My brain went to my baby's dying. And so that fear, tension, pain, it sent me over the edge. Yeah. This time I knew what that was. And I was like, I remember sitting in the tub and feeling that push. And I was like, oh, this is the fetal ejection reflex. This is the fetal ejection. I know what this is. I know what this is. And my midwife looked at me and she was like, Aubrey, are you pushing? And I wanted to be like, no, bitch, it's a fetal ejection reflex. I ain't doing nothing. I'm not pushing. That baby is doing all of this, you know? Because I wasn't pushing at all. It was happening naturally. And so they have to get me out of the tub because hospital protocol is you can't have a baby in a tub with water. Right. So my husband literally like lifts me out of the tub. They take me to the bed and I was they pulled up the back of the bed and I was laboring on all fours and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that fetal ejection reflex, I was like, I know what this is.
Oh my
gosh. And I'm doing this. Like I had this moment of like, and I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. And then what was really cool is the nurse, obviously they're monitoring the baby, you know, getting the sensors on the belly and everything. And I was laboring on hands and knees and my midwife was like, because I'm listening to my music and noise canceling headphones. Yeah. So I was doing the low noises like mooing and everything, but the pain or the intensity, thank you very much, of the contractions was kind of forcing my voice up. And my midwife had to remind me, Aubrey, I hear what you're doing, but I need you to pitch it lower. I need you to pitch your voice lower. And then I remembered like, oh, the mooing. Yeah. Okay. And suddenly that helped too. Like that helped bring the contractions to a place where they weren't as intense. And that was really cool to see too. That was really cool.
Awesome.
And then they were like, Aubrey, we need to flip you because your baby is actually in a great position, exactly where we want, where spine is, I can't remember all the technical terms for it, but in front, you know, like head down, spine in front. That's exactly what we want. And one of the things I told myself I did not want to do this pregnancy is give birth on my back because that was so triggering from last time. They wouldn't let me get up. They wouldn't let me move. I had to deliver on my back. And suddenly that wasn't a fear anymore. It wasn't a fear. Like I gladly turned around and here I am like in the same position that I gave birth to my daughter, giving birth to my now son. Yeah. And it was really cool because I was like, okay, this is the fetal ejection reflex. What comes next? And at that point it was time for the ring of fire. And I was like, oh, ring of fire's next. Okay. Ring of fire's next. Okay. Well, let's breathe through this then. Let's just see what happens. It was such an out of body, beautiful experience because like with your program, I knew exactly what was coming. Wow. And it wasn't scary. It wasn't this like unpredictable, like terrifying unknown. And just knowing what to expect at every phase. That's what really saved me. And then before I know it, I've pushed, not very hard. Yeah. And suddenly my baby is out, my baby is on my chest.
Oh my
And
God.
I look up and my husband's got like tears in his eyes. And he was like,
oh my
boss, that
gosh.
was amazing. You did that. Like you
Oh
just,
my
you
gosh.
like, you did it. Yeah,
That
I
is
know.
so
And it was just like,
beautiful.
I can't believe this whole, like I did the whole thing by I mean, not by myself, obviously I had a supportive group
Yeah.
around me, but like, my God, just to look up and see my husband's eyes and he's crying and he really
Wow.
can't believe I just did that, because for the
Wow.
last like 3 years, it's been really hard. Sorry.
No.
But you know, to see that this is like a really different experience than last time. And because we had to go through a lot of marriage counseling and a lot of like, I needed to go through a lot of therapy from last time.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, yeah, just to look up and see in my husband's eyes that he was just in awe of what I had done. You
Wow.
know? Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you so much for your program.
No, I have chills. I seriously have chills right now because I resonate with so much, you know, and I don't necessarily know all of the details of your first birth experience, but I know what it's like, you know, to have to heal from something that you didn't expect to have to heal from, right? You're like, this is like supposed to be the most beautiful, empowering experience that you did experience the second time around, but to get there was so much harder, right? Because we had to overcome what all of these scary stories, you know, kind of resulted in, but not because it was something that we did wrong. It was something that we didn't know how to do because we didn't have the information or we didn't have the right support. And I resonate so much with that because um I really was, you know, I think postpartum changes us, you know, birth changes us in so many different ways. Um, but the way that you go into postpartum changes it too. And so, you know, when you are like, I'm supposed to be so happy, like I have this baby, but then I also have this experience that I'm trying to like juggle at the same time. And now, you know, you having had two of these experiences and two very stark, different experiences, you're like, oh my gosh, this is what it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be. And I know, and you knew clearly the first time, you knew what was happening with your body. I need to move. I need to get up. I need to do this. But, you know, you couldn't.
Another thing that really helped too was after, like, I was still in the delivery room, I had my golden hour, which I did not get with my daughter the first time around. They immediately took her away from me to a NICU where she stayed for 5 days. But I got my
Wow.
golden hour with this guy, and
Hmm.
it was wonderful. My milk came in, he latched, you know, all that stuff. And one of the really cool things when my husband was like standing there with me, just we were snuggling this guy, and one of the nurses was like, that was really cool. You guys make a really great team. And I
Wow.
was like, we do make a really great team. That felt really good to have someone like observe what we just went through and how he was so supportive and how I was receptive to that support,
Yeah.
and gave birth naturally in a hospital setting, which they don't get to see very often. Because then
Right.
that same nurse was like, and I love natural births. God, they're so beautiful. Natural births are just the best. And this is a nurse working in a hospital.
Right.
And she's telling
Wow.
me how much she just loves the natural births, you know? It's
Wow. Hmm.
fantastic. Yeah,
Oh my
it
gosh.
was such a beautiful moment, you
Oh
know?
my gosh. I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh, my everything in me is just jumping with so much joy and so much happiness and just so much like I don't even know what the word I don't even have the words right now because I'm just so happy because I just feel you on so many levels. I resonate with everything that you're saying on so many levels because, you know, and I think when you talk about, and that's why half of this material is in the course. It's like, I'm like, if I could have done this the first time, how much different would life be right now? and how much different, even though my second birth was so euphoric and it was so empowering, like, would it have been 10 times more euphoric and empowering if that was what I expected it to be, not like this is what I hope for it to be. And I'm just so grateful, like I said, for you being willing to share this with me, because I literally, like, you are the reason that this exists. Like, mothers like you, women who are doing this for the first time around, like, this is the story that needs to be shared, because people will still stick to those other scary stories. And it's not to invalidate or discredit, because those things happen. We've been through those births before. We were those scary births, right? But we
Yeah.
understand now, like, it didn't have to be that way because of all of these things. If I would have known this, it wouldn't have been like this. Even if our outcome was different, the experience didn't have to be that way. So I'm just so, like I said, I'm just so grateful um, for you being willing to share. And I'm so happy to see, of course, postpartum is still challenging regardless. You're tired and all the things. You have 2 kids now. So it doesn't make it easier in the fourth trimester necessarily, but it may make it more enjoyable, because you
Yes.
know how to handle it, you know how to manage it, and you've done the work. And you guys are having those conversations. So that's like what's the most important.
If you're open to doing this course and you're open to the idea that having a baby, that childbirth isn't a terrifying, painful experience, and I think that's where it comes from. I think it comes from the fact that, for the most part, our society has peddled this idea in movies and television. We see the scenes of having, giving birth, and they're
Yeah.
screaming, there's blood, there's blah, blah, blah. And we rarely hear that the stories about the woman who, like, laughed her baby out because she was so euphoric.
Yeah.
My girlfriend Kim, who labored in a tub at home, something that I always thought was the dumbest thing you could do, because from other friends' experiences, it's like, that's how mothers and babies die. Like, they labor at home and they do the water births and they die. And it's like, really? Because my friend Kim said it was the best experience she's ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And she's alive, and so is her beautiful baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess what I would say to someone who's on the fence about taking this course is, like, I would want to, like, tell them my story and how much this helped me. But ultimately, I would say that, like, this is an experience unlike any other. There is nothing on earth that compares to the experience of having a baby, of your body literally, like, doing this.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry.
No, that's okay.
And if it is this life-altering experience, wouldn't you want to know everything there is to know about how to make it not scary, about how to make it, like, beautiful and empowering? And even if it doesn't go all according to plan, like, even if you do need an emergency C-section or something like that, at least you have the information so you can make a decision.
Yeah.
And that was an empowering thing too with this experience. Is okay, perfect example. My husband and I have been through this pregnancy, like, no, we're going to ask questions, and if the answer doesn't satisfy us, we're moving on. And that's what prompted me to leave my OB and move to a midwife, is like, she couldn't answer my questions anymore. And I'm tired of crying after every single visit with my OB, because I want to know what's going to happen in that room. And she doesn't want me to know what's going to happen in that room, because she doesn't want to give up control. She's a lovely human being. She really is. But when it comes to that dynamic of having an OB, they don't want me to be in control of the room. They want to be in control of the room so that they can control exactly what's happening, because it reduces their liability. I get that. That's not the experience that I want. I want the experience that I am in control. I will be making these decisions. and I need people around me that will support me,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, perfect example of like just asking questions.
Yeah.
When the lady came in to talk to me about like epidurals and stuff, and for this pregnancy, she was explaining the epidurals, and I was like, are there, and I was like just exploring my options as far as pain management. And I said, are there drugs that I can take intravenously, because I was GBS positive, and so they needed to hook me up to an IV so I could get penicillin. I needed the penicillin over the 4 hours, whatever it is. Yeah. So I'm already hooked up to an IV. Are there any medications I can get through an IV? And the woman was like, oh yeah, we have fentanyl. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like fentanyl? Like the drug that's out on the streets right now killing people? And I looked at my husband, and my husband looked at me, and I was like, fentanyl. And he was like, please explain. And we were like, yeah, please explain. And they're like, oh, well, I mean, it's a really small, I mean, it's not like the stuff on the streets. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not going to do fentanyl. Like, no. And it just took asking the question, being a little bit dubious of the person who has the medical degree in the room.
Yep.
Like, I don't have a medical degree, but no, I'm not putting fentanyl in my body, right? No shame to anyone who wants to do fentanyl, but I'm not putting fentanyl in my body while I'm having a baby.
Yeah.
So asking questions, this course will answer your questions. That's what I would say. If you have any questions about childbirth, any question in your mind, take this course, because it will answer your questions. And you know what? If it doesn't answer your questions, Chanel will talk to you. I literally contacted you on Instagram, and you messaged me back, and then you didn't hear from me for a while because I was busy taking your course and figuring stuff out on my own. And all I did was send you a little thank you. And now here we are talking face to face. So it's like, you have nothing to lose. It's an expensive course. I get that. But you know what was more expensive? 2 years of therapy and marriage counseling, and the fact that my marriage suffered so much. My husband and I were talking about it the other day. Like, this course saved me. I would pay that amount again. I would pay that amount again. Yes, this course was absolutely invaluable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.